Good morning. Hello, everybody. Look at this. I rearranged my studio and it looks different, doesn't it? Happy Tuesday. My studio is almost where I want it to be. We're getting there. We're getting there slowly but surely, figuring out how to move about in my new space here. So, welcome. It's Tuesday, and I'm so excited to share with you something that is so near and dear to my heart today. It's the concept of words and clarity in the studio. So, here we go. Let's talk about how annoying it is when you get vague, unclear instructions about how to sing better. This is one of my biggest pet peeves, if I'm being completely honest. Um, Phrases like support from your diaphragm or breathe from your diaphragm. Either one of those drive me freaking nuts. Open your throat, stand up straight, take a deep breath, drop your jaw. All of these things are things that we've heard so many times in our lives as singers. And if I'm being, again, completely honest, in my teaching, I have been guilty of using these sometimes. I try really hard to remove these from my vocabulary 100% because they're so vague and unclear and they can mean so many different things. So over the years, I have, through some amazing mentorship and training, I became aware of this process that is a really, really helpful. It's simple process. It's just 5 simple steps that you do, and you take this with you into all different parts of learning. It doesn't just apply to singing, by the way, but I'm super excited to share it with you today. By following this process, it really truly eliminates vague instructions and it leads the way to really being able to establish functional singing, individual growth in the student, and it is much easier on both the student and the teacher. So I'm very excited to share this with you today. So this is obviously something that we've all experienced. I think anybody that's ever been in a voice lesson has experienced this. If you can relate to this idea of, being in a lesson or a master class or choir or something, and your teacher goes, stand up straight, take a deep breath, and you're like, well, I thought I was. Maybe this is something we can relate to. I would love for you to hear about it. So, what's a vocal instruction? If you're listening right now, what's a vocal instruction that is one of your biggest pet peeves when a teacher says it to you, where you're just like, well, that wasn't helpful, or it was vague or unclear, or, well, I'd be happy to do that if I knew how. That's why I'm here. Can you help me figure out how to do that? How to breathe from my diaphragm or how to support my sound? Um, I would love to hear about that. So please feel free to drop that in the chat. So, and also if you're listening, make sure you stick around to the end because I'm going to give you one phrase. A 5-step process, if that's too much and you're like, I don't want to remember all these steps, there's one key phrase that if you always use this phrase as you're teaching and learning, it really can help guide your mindset to help you clarify whatever concepts you're trying to practice or learn. So if you're just joining me, my name is Crystal Barron. I'm the founder of Crystal Voice Studio, and I'm a professional voice teacher, trainer, and mentor, and a vocal health and recovery specialist. And I'm here every Tuesday morning, and I'm still trying to figure out, how this whole live stream thing works. But it's my goal to just be here, be available to the community. I have a bunch of great fun things going on in my studio that I love to just kind of keep you guys abreast with. And I'm here to interact with you, and we're all in this vocal journey together. So that's what my Tuesday live streams are about, just to kind of talk about life and voice and how all these different things interact with each other. Okay, so just to recap, some of the phrases and terminology in voice lessons that we hear and use, voice teachers, can be vague, confusing, and can actually lead to misunderstandings and misguided beliefs about what it means to sing, which can cause lots of problems down the road. Sometimes it's a matter of the concept getting lost in translation. I say something, and as a teacher, I'm like, well, of course they understand exactly what I'm saying. But that's making a lot of assumptions about how their brain processes things and what their life experience is. So, regardless of how and why the misunderstandings happen, it's important that we have clarity and precision in communication in our lessons. And this is a two-way street. Teachers, we need to be, in the immortal words of Stephen Sondheim, careful the things we say, because our students will listen. And students, hold us accountable. If you don't understand what we're saying, I empower you. I implore you to ask questions and challenge us. Be nice, be respectful, of course, but don't be afraid of asking and going, I have no idea what that means. Can you clarify that, please? Or I hear the words, but I might be thinking something different. Can you restate what you just said to me? I empower you to do that. Okay, so are we ready? We're going to dive right in. Here is the 5-step process that I use in my studio all the time. This is the same process that we use in Crystal Voice Studio when we are working with students, okay? So here's how it goes. Step 1, we always want to go, what am I trying to accomplish? So when I'm giving, as a teacher, when I'm giving an instruction to a student, it's really important that I go, well, I'm hearing this, I'm seeing this, what am I trying to fix? Like, if I don't know what the goal is, it's just arbitrary random words coming out of my mouth, right? So teachers, we have to live by this, what do I see, what do I hear, and what change needs to happen to bring things into balance. As a student, the question that you would ask is, what don't I like about my voice right now? What am I trying to change? Am I trying to access a different note? Am I trying to change a tone quality? Am I trying to fix my vibrato? Am I trying to work on my tension? What is it that I don't like about my voice right now, and how am I trying to change it? And if you're in lesson and you're working together, this is a conversation that you can have between you, teacher and student. So that's step 1. First, we have to know, what target am I aiming at? Number 2, what does the science tell us about this concept? So that's step 2. We have to go back to science. More and more, we have a whole body of evidence that will guide us and inform us in our decisions. And so teachers, hopefully you have resources available to you that are outside your own experience. If I go, okay, what am I trying to accomplish? I'm trying to get them to, release their jaw. Okay, well, if I only am speaking from my own experience, well, this is what worked for me, or this is what my teachers told me that helped me to release my jaw. I'm really limiting myself. So it's really important that we look to the science, that we examine anatomy and physiology and acoustics. And this is where, we may have to go outside of the vocal pedagogy textbooks. So again, I'm talking to the teachers first, then I'm going to talk to the students here. So we have all these pedagogy books that may or may not make sense to us, but we need to, this is where we access our networks of teachers, we access our teacher training groups, mentorship, things like that. So it's really important that we look outside our own experience, and we're not just perpetuating what our teachers told us, right? So hopefully you guys can hear me. I'm starting to get a little bit of a fan noise. So I think actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in my microphone. And while I'm doing that, oh, hi, I see some friends here. Drink the sound. Yes, Meredith, drink the sound. Okay. You got a straw? That was great. And I always have trouble explaining open your throat or relax your throat. Yeah, that one's so interesting. And I was just watching somebody yesterday. I think it was Carrie Obert, who's brilliant. And she was saying, open the throat actually isn't always the answer. Sometimes we need less space in the throat, and we're trying so hard to open our throat, and that's not what the problem is. The problem is we need to put the throat in the exact right shape for the acoustics to happen. Can you guys hear me okay? hopefully you can hear me okay, because I can't find where I just put my microphone when I moved everything around. So Elisa, yeah, sing to your teeth. What does that mean? I think they're trying to get you maybe to sense some vibration. So anyway, back to, hopefully we're that fan went away. I'm getting a new computer too because my computer is not cooperating. So anyway, we're teachers, we're going outside our own experience. Now, students, again, don't be afraid to ask, because a lot of these concepts as a student, we started to learn when we were 8, 9, 10, 12 years old maybe. And so our little like unformed human brains at age 12, they don't understand the concepts the same way that we do as an adult. So a lot of times we are still stuck in that adolescent concept or even childlike concept of what it means to, for instance, take a deep breath. It means lots of different things. So if your teacher says take a deep breath, and you're like, well, what does that mean? Like, literally, it's okay to say those words. What does that mean? Scientifically, what parts of my body should be moving? And hopefully your teacher can answer that. And it's also okay. This is when I started giving myself permission to not know all the answers that my students asked. That's when I really started to gain in the studio all sorts of freedom, where I'd go, let's look at that concept together, because I don't want you to be limited by my limitations as your teacher. So we would literally open up a textbook, and we'd open up an anatomy and book, and we would look and see, oh, look, these are all the attachments of the diaphragm. And I wonder what that means. Let's explore that a little bit, okay? So student, don't be afraid to ask. And teacher, we're always expanding out, looking outside our own experience to find out, what does the science tell us about this concept? Now, once we learn what we can learn from science and our own mentorship circles, step 3 is we want to compare what is the ideal, and I use quotation marks because none of us are ideal, right? But what we're going to compare the ideal to what is happening in my own body. So if the science is telling me that to create let's talk about the E vowel. To create an E vowel, we need to have a high forward tongue. There's very little space in the front of the mouth with big giant space behind the tongue. That is what the ideal E tongue position is. Now, what does my body want to do on that E vowel? And if you take a second and you just examine it, you'll go, whoa, that's not at all what's happening in my body. And teachers, it's not about our body, it's about the student's body. So you can guide them through this process where you're like, okay, let's look at this picture of this tongue. And remember that when we're looking at pictures, of course, it's 2-dimensional. We want to examine things in 3 dimensions, right? All points of the compass in all directions. And so teachers, you're gonna recruit the student into the process, especially online. What do you feel? Where's your tongue? Where's the sensation? For this one particular thing, if we're talking about the eval, but you can do this for literally every step of the learning process. So we are comparing, this is what the science is telling us. Now this is what my body's doing. And then this is where it gets crazy, because none of us are 100% anatomically normative. So for instance, in the roof of my mouth, I have this thing, it's called a torus palatinus. It's a bump that hangs down from the roof of my mouth. So instead of my mouth being this shape, it's this shape. It's like an M. So my tongue cannot physically go into the shape it's supposed to do to make certain sounds. This has to be acknowledged. So if I'm trying to do an E sound and I'm supposed to have a high fronted tongue, guess what? My torus palatinus gets in the way. And this is something I just figured out about myself, which is crazy, right? So I have to go, okay, so this is what ideal is, but I can't do ideal. It's physically impossible unless I want to go in and have major surgery like an inch from my brain. No, thank you. I'm going to figure out another way to do it. So then it's walking that tightrope between what is my body willing to do, what is it able to do, and what is the ideal, and how can we compromise between the two things and retain function, achieve the goal that I'm trying to achieve, and like find balance in my body, because I could keep going with my tongue, but there's all sorts of compensations that are going to happen. That's just me personally. Okay. Now, students, how does the student manifest this step? The teacher doesn't know all the weird little things in your body. You may not know all the weird little things in your body. I didn't know I had a torus palatinus. I didn't know that wasn't normal until I was like 40 something. One of my daughters was like, whoa, what is that thing in your mouth? When I was laughing, I was like, ah! They're like, ah! They were horrified. At that point, I was like, wait a minute, that's not normal. Show me your mouth. And they showed me your mouth, and sure enough, the shape of my mouth was different than theirs. And at that point, that changed everything for me. And it led me on this journey of discovery about my own body. So this is a rabbit hole you can go into where you're like, well, doesn't everybody have this? Doesn't everybody experience this? Oh, you could be a little louder, but yes. Oh, you have an M too, Meredith, so you have the torus palatinus. I think that there's lots of implications about, we need to have a talk about this, because I think there's lots of implications, and I'm getting ready to do a study on this. So anyways, so yes, so students, this is a lifelong self-discovery of, this is what my body does. Is this normal? I hate that word, but I use it. And then don't be afraid to ask your teacher. You know, like I also was tongue-tied. And so I'm like, well, I can only do this, like an L, all right? And so I didn't realize that normal people could do this. I finally got it fixed. But it's important for the teacher to ask leading questions. If they see something that seems different than what they know to be normative, then they need to be willing to ask those questions of the student. And then student, if you have any question at all of, is this normal, you need to ask the teacher. Say, I have this thing, is this normal? Don't be afraid to ask. And teachers, if you don't know, that's a wonderful opportunity to go, let's explore. Let's see what the science tells us. And we'll find what our range of normal is. So isn't that cool? Teachers, don't be afraid to ask questions about your students. Can you do this? Can I see that? Let me see your tonsils. You know, things like that. Because just because something is a way it is in your mouth, that does not define the rest of the human population. And the more that we can understand that in every person, there are going to be a certain number of things that are not typical. They are going to be atypical outside, or maybe if this is the range of normal, they might be all the way towards this side or all the way towards this side, and you might be here and they might be here. And it's really important that we're operating with an accurate set of data points so that we can make informative instructions to them. Okay, so now that's step 3, is we're comparing what is the ideal to what is happening in our body. Then we're going to, using this information, we're going to make a specific adjustment. We're going to say, okay, let's go back to my eval. My tongue wanted to make an eval with the back of my tongue because it didn't know how to do it with the front of my tongue. That makes sense, knowing that I have a torus palatinus. It also explains why I had a ton of tongue dysfunction and jaw tension and lots of tightness in my hyoid area. So once I understood, oh, I'm going to have to figure out a way that my tongue can make the E sound that the world desires to hear, but is going to respect the limitations of my own mouth. And then I started to play around. And I finally had to realize that my tongue actually has to do this. This is me. My tongue has to do this to account for the groove that the torus palatinus. And by doing that, so my E shape does not match any of those charts that you see in the linguistics department. But when I did that, then all of a sudden my jaw was able to release. So I had to make very specific adjustments based on the data points that we have and the science that informed us. And then you make the adjustment, and then you assess, how did it work? Am I headed in the right direction? And there's many sub steps in here where you're like, well, I'm going to try this, and I'm going to try this. That didn't work. This made it worse. Whoa, is that a good thing? Because maybe it's because change is happening, but I don't know how to make that change happen. So this can be a really messy step, but it also can be really, really fun. Again, teachers, it's really important that we recruit the student into the process. It's more asking and less telling. Try to figure out What shape does your tongue want to go in? Is it able to do any of these things? And this, again, this is just one tiny articulation aspect. We all know that it's a full body process in singing. And then student, we're looking for, how does it feel? Does it feel better? Is your body willing to try these new things that may be completely foreign to you? And does it feel better? You may have to depend on your teacher on whether or not it sounds better in the process. So that's step 4. We make the specific adjustments, and then we assess, how is it working? Maybe it gets worse before it gets better, but that might be part of the process of unwinding some of the bad habits that we have that we're trying to replace. And then step 5, after we assess how it worked, then you adjust as necessary and you keep going. Either, so you're like, well, that didn't work, let's make a U-turn and go back this way. Or, I think that we might have something here, let's keep pulling on this thread. So, yay, thank you, Meredith. More asking, less telling. Yes, yes, yes. That is absolutely what this is all about. It's not just replicating our own experience as a teacher, right? It's helping the student find their own experience and their own balance, which by definition is going to be different because everybody is unique. So anyway, that's my 5-step process. That was a lot, right? So let's go back and let's do a really quick, speedy recap. Step 1, we are always asking, what am I trying to accomplish? Step 2, what does the science tell me about this concept? And there's all areas of science you can look into. There's neuroscience, there's biology, there's anatomy, there's physiology, there's acoustics, there's lots and lots of different resources, not just textbooks, but people, humans that are experts on the subject, or mentors. Step 3, we want to compare what is the ideal to what is happening in my body. And that's student or the teacher, what is happening in my student's body, which is going to require lots of question asking, right? Step 4, you make an adjustment and then you assess, how well did it go? And then step 5, you make whatever adjustments are necessary and you keep going either in a different direction or in the same direction. And this is a process that can work in lessons. Students, this is a process you can use in your own practice. Teachers, you'll need to give them guidelines so that you know specifically, because there's so many different things that can be distracting to them. Give them very, very specific instructions to ask about whatever, if it's their vowel or if it's their posture or if it's their breathing or whatever. The more specific we can be in studio, the more successful they can be in this process in their practice. And then I told you, I promised you I was going to give you the one specific phrase, the one key phrase, and this is going to change everything. So when we have these phrases that mean nothing, take a deep breath, stand up straight, whatever it is, this is the one key phrase that I want you to remember. What else could this mean? So if somebody says, take a deep breath, me as the teacher, if I'm tempted to say, take a deep breath, I have to stop and go, what do I really mean? What else does this mean? What is really going on here? Instead of the knee-jerk reaction, oh, they just need to take a deep breath. As a student, when you hear take a deep breath, we want to go back into, okay, I first heard this when I was 8 in my church choir or whatever. What else could this mean in my own body? Because I've heard it a million times and clearly I'm still not doing it right because I'm still being asked to take a deep breath, whatever that means. So what else could that mean in my body? What else could that mean so now we're going to go back through that process of, what am I actually trying to accomplish with this task? What is my teacher asking me to do? And what can I look at in my own body to help explore a different way of applying this concept of take a deep breath? So that's the one key phrase. And I'm always asking myself that. What else could this mean? What's another direction that I could come from, and helping myself to understand or to help my student understand, depending on what role I'm playing, because I am student and teacher all the time. I'm student and teacher. So I would love to know what you think. Do I have a reading list for students who want to dig into the science for themselves? I have lots of books that I'm constantly reading. I don't necessarily have like a library list. I know right now I'm fascinated by the neuroscience of how the brain controls all of it. Um, and so Andrew Byrne is a good one. Lynn Helding has a book that's about the cognitive side, the brain side of things. Um, McCoy, when you're doing the Scott McCoy books, there's a lot in there. You know, any of even the old pedagogy books, I love going back through, even Miller, and reading it and going, oh, it's actually all right here, but I was looking through the lens of adolescence when I was reading this concept about rib movement and abdominals and engagement of support. But when you go back and you read it after looking at the concepts more from an anatomical standpoint, you can see it's all there. It's just we see it through the lens of whatever, you know, we first learned things. Lynn Helding is her name. Let me write that in. It's Lynn Helding. She is actually at USC. So one of the things I'm thinking about doing this year is having like a book club where we have a book and we work through it together and we talk about how, structures of singing, totally. And the more, you can go back to some of the books that you have, but the ones I'm using in my vocal pedagogy class right now, let me show you. These are the ones I have right here. This is Lynn's book, The Musician's Mind. I have not yet started reading it, but I want to. So maybe that can be a book club. This one is great, just if you're looking more from an anecdotal standpoint. Yes, book club, yay! Okay, Breath. This isn't so much scientific. He's a journalist, but it's really, really interesting. Oh, everybody's into book club. Great, we're gonna do a book club. Done. Your Voice of the Basics. This is what I use in my vocal pedagogy class. There's some good stuff there. But again, a lot of times we're blinded by our own the lens that we first learned some of these concepts, and so I like to go back through it and really pick it apart with fresh eyes. And then this is the other book I'm using in my vocal pedagogy class. I actually got to review this book, and it's really quite good. So there's some really good stuff. So I like to go lots of different directions. So anyway, yay. Okay, so I guess what we learned today is we're gonna have a book club. Let's do it. We're going to make this happen. So be on the lookout for that. It'll also force me to finish reading some of these books that I've started and haven't finished. So, yeah, I have Your Voice, the Basics. There's the big one. This is the skinny one. This is a little more digestible. I definitely recommend using one of the later editions because there was some language in there that I feel like he changed it because he got pushback from the vocal community because it was like there was some misogynistic, and he didn't mean to have some of that verbiage, but some of it was not great language in just like remembering that they were like mnemonics and stuff, and it was like, no, let's just change that or get rid of it altogether. Can I put the 2 titles of the vocal ped book? So yeah, absolutely, Kelly. I will post that in the comments when we're done. So you guys, thanks for joining me today. This was absolutely wonderful. Sometimes I feel like I'm speaking into the ether and nobody's with me. So it was super fun having a group of people on here with me. I will see you all next Tuesday at 9:30. I don't know what I'm going to talk about, but I'll figure it out between now and then. Until then, have a great week, and I will see you later. Bye.